Joining us now is a man who knows a little bit something about this. Patrick Buchanan, of course, advisor to several presidents, conservative commentator, columnist, author, and happy late birthday, Pat.
No, thanks.
We're all getting up there, my friend. Don't worry. You have more knowledge.
57 years old is tough.
You have more knowledge and wisdom in your pinky finger than everybody on TV combined last night. Okay, so you're good. Let's talk about what happened last night, specifically Trump's decision to really run hard on the issue of immigration. It was questioned and it was reviled, and you hear old Joe Scarborough still calling everybody racist. What's your view on this?
I think immigration is the most powerful issue that Donald Trump had in the election of 2016. I think it's the most powerful long-term issue the Republicans have. I think the country is, not only in America but in Europe. And I think he went with his lead card, and I think he did the right thing. And I think, look, the interesting thing about last night is the liberals were waiting for these big victories of Stacey Abrams and then the Gillum down there in Florida, and then Beto was going to come to D.C. And during the night, I was watching TV, and somebody said, look, we're going to get Trump's tax returns. Now, this is the party that when I came into politics, Lyndon Johnson was, we're going to do civil rights and Medicare and Medicaid. Now the big goal is to get Donald Trump's tax returns. It was appalling. I think Trump overall won last night. We knew the Democrats had a fighting chance to take the House. He got all those seats in the Senate. He's really just basically driven the Senate up to the point where the judges you get up there are going to be approved. So I think overall it's a good night for Republicans.
Yeah, the only time, and you can refresh my memory, Pat, but I think it's only been 4 times where the party in power actually flips seats. It looks like it could be as many as 4 to 5 seats now flipped. Again, they're being careful to not to call too many of them.
I can tell you about one of them. It was 1970, the 7 Weeks War against the radical liberals, as we called it in Nixon's White House, where we went all out to gain seats for a third straight election. And we did pick up, 2 in the Senate, and Jim Buckley came in, and Bill Brock came in, Lowell Weicker, and George H.W. Bush was defeated in Texas by Benson. And we did lose, I think, about a dozen seats in the House, but we gained in the Senate. But it's a rarity. The big one on those years, of course, is FDR 1932, 34, I think, just ran the table.
Yeah, well, okay, so those were big and historic moments. And you look back on just this last month, the Kavanaugh story looms so large. Every Democrat in these close races who voted against Kavanaugh, they ended up losing. Of course, yep. Heidi Heitkamp went down. Joe Manchin won in West Virginia. He had a huge influx of money to save that seat, but he also voted for Kavanaugh. And then, of course, Claire McCaskill voted against Kavanaugh. She goes down. How big was that?
Oh, that's enormous. It's enormous. I think the Kavanaugh thing, it was becoming a usual off-year election where the president of his party loses several dozen seats, and the Republicans were fighting for the Senate. And I think the Kavanaugh thing really ignited a real sense of let's get in there and do battle. And I think it firmed up the Republican base, and you got some enthusiasm and energy, and that's what put these folks over the top. I think Florida is still undecided, is it not? With Scott ahead?
No, Scott didn't Scott win? They haven't conceded it yet. Yeah, it might be
contesting it, but that's another one.
Yeah.
But again, looking forward, what are the Democrats? They got what's the face of the party? Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff. These are the people who are going to go forward. They're going to be totally negative. They're not going to be able to put anything over because Trump and the Senate have vetoes over anything they do as well as their veto. And I think this is a matchup. Trump against these folks and all the Democrats getting into the race against each other for the nomination, I think it works to the benefit to the Republican Party. I think overall, I think the Republican Party dodged dodged what the Democrats were saying was a blue wave coming.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody's talking about the big blue tsunami now.
And the critical issue of supporting Trump. Look at what happened with someone like a Bruce Rauner in Illinois, who's a Bush-style Republican, governor of Illinois, goes down to the billionaire Pritzker. And by the way, if the regular people could see Pritzker's home in the Bahamas, which I've had the pleasure of seeing from a distance, they might not think he was. Yeah, it makes Mar-a-Lago look like a hut. Okay, it's just like a massive guy is unbelievable. And he's building another home. He has like 2 major homes. I've never seen anything like it. Raping the beach in Bahamas. Yeah. So Rauner goes down, but Rauner was never comfortable with Trump. Now, Illinois is a tricky state for, we have Chicago, tricky state. But the breakdown of the city people versus the rural people, Pat, the rural people, the pitchfork Pat types came out in droves. But in places like Connecticut, where Bob Stefanowski, we thought he could have pulled it out. It turns out in the end that liberal Ned Lamont ends up winning in Connecticut because the cities came in the end for the Democrats, despite what's happened to the cities of Connecticut, hollowed out.
But Connecticut's a basket case. It used to be basically people looked upon it as really one of the greatest places in America to move and live. And folks left New York and would move into Connecticut because it was such a great state. What did they have, a 9% loss in GDP of Connecticut in 10 years?
And they're voting for Democrats. You go figure that out.
I mean, that's just astonishing.
Yeah, and
again, I think looking forward, you look at the chessboard looking forward. And I think, and President Trump loves a fight, and he's going to get it.
Yeah, well.
And again, the face of the Democratic Party really is not attractive. I mean, even Democrats, my guess is some Democrats are going to say, what? We got the House, and now we're going to present Nancy Pelosi again to the country?
Well, Florida is also going to rely next time on felons because 1 million of them got their voting rights restored yesterday. But maybe some of the felons will be for the Republicans. It's not necessarily true. Trump's doing that prison reform, and he's doing that, which a lot of conservatives have some problems with. But I think there's actually stuff to be done with some of the sentencing issues and some of the prison stuff.
I do say one problem in the long term is which I've been talking about since wrote Death of the West, is the long-term demography.
Oh, totally.
If you don't get when you talk about, there's 44 million folks in the country who are basically immigrants, and that continues to grow, and eventually they're going to overwhelm the folks who are basically the Republican base. But I think in the short term, this has set up a good battle for 2020, and again, it'll be on by January.
How about the American media? How did they do in all of this? Once again,
I think what I saw, much of the liberal media was disappointed. I think they were looking for the big victories in Florida and Georgia in the governor's races. They didn't get those, and Beto, of course, was the big ooh and ah, the great hope of American liberalism, and he went down to Ted Cruz. So I think there's a sense of real disappointment, and you can see it on the faces of some of them, and sort of reaching for, isn't this great, and a bit forced. But I really think the Republicans dodged a bullet last night.
Well, and again, Trump was carrying the whole party on his back. And, at 72 years of age, he crisscrossed the country, did more rallies. I've never seen anything like him.
You really got to give him credit for that. This guy really put the time, energy in. Again, I've never seen a president in my lifetime go out and fight as hard for his party as Trump did, and with as many stops as he made in his desperate effort to hold on to the U.S. Senate and coming home with victories, adding seats in the U.S. Senate. And again, he's got to get the credit. He's got to get the credit for that.
No, he deserves huge credit for that. This is what Lindsey Graham, in 2 years ago, you go back 2 years, Lindsey Graham was a Trump critic, was kind of never Trump. He slowly came along to Trump, and then he went full Trump during Kavanaugh, and even he wants the wall built for some kind of DACA deal. I mean, I've never seen a transformation of anyone like Lindsey Graham. I've never seen anything like it, but this is what he said today.
The reason we won is I think Kavanaugh united our party. The caravan was a front to our sovereignty. The economy was good, and President Trump worked his butt off to get out the Republican base vote. And I'm feeling really good now. This is a good night for Republicans in the Senate. Cory Gardner did a great job. We're just going to have to find common ground with the Democrats in the House. If they want to investigate Trump to death and try to impeach him, then it'll blow up.
Your reaction there, do you agree?
I do agree, and Lindsey Graham, played a role in that Kavanaugh thing. I think he was, next to Kavanaugh, he was the individual that really stopped what looked like a defeat for the Republicans there. He did a great job. And overall, in the last 2 years, I've got to admire it, Lindsey Graham has grown.
Absolutely.
He did a great, and he's come around, and he's done a good job for the president.
No, he's done a fantastic job. Pat, we deal in every presidential election. Republicans start with, okay, we're not going to win California and we're not going to win New York. Is there any way the president can change that dynamic in 2 years? Is there any way he can do it? All these results didn't seem to make much of a difference in either state. We lost a couple of seats in New York. Claudia Tenney went down, and a few others went down. In California, Dana Rohrabacher, who's an old Reaganite, he worked
with me in the Reagan White House. He was a speechwriter on that staff there. You're getting into. We're talking again about what was called the Blue Wall before 2016. Not only California and New York, but Illinois. Illinois hadn't gone Republican, I think, since 1988 or way back then. And it used to be that Pennsylvania was in that basket as well, and New Jersey, and there are others like that. I don't know how. I mean, given the numbers, given the demography that's coming, and given the numbers there, how you ever turn California or New York around, absent some horrendous disaster for the country, which nobody would like to see.
Well, that's. Then you
got the two big ones for the Republicans. The two anchors there are Texas and Florida. And Florida is the swing state almost it is in the presidential elections. Ohio's Republican base is becoming a swing state.
Mike DeWine won there.
And Texas, the demography there is not on the side of the Republicans.
Yeah, but Texas, I think, I agree with you. I mean, it means we have to be really smart in the way we campaign and so forth. But look, you got Dan Patrick, the toughest out there on immigration, Lieutenant Governor Greg Abbott. I think they got 44% of the Hispanic vote. The Hispanics don't want the Texas to turn into, God bless them, Salvador or Honduras. They wanted Texas to be a vibrant state.
I want Texas to be California.
Right? I mean, you don't want Texas to be San Francisco. Look what's happened to that once glorious city. Pat Buchanan, you're always 50 years old in my mind, because I think that's the first time I met you. You were 50 years old or 48 years old or something like that, a long time ago. But you're amazing, and so much of what you've predicted has come true over the last few years, and we just value you so much. Thank you so much for your insights today.
Well, thank you.